Well, thank you all for being here, and we really appreciate your staying on for this afternoon plenary. My name is Ann Thrupp, and I'm the Senior Program Officer of Food Systems Transformation at the Cliff Family Foundation. And I'm also a brand new board member of SAFSF. So I'm really honored and excited to welcome you to this session on food chain workers' protections, resilience, environmental, and health equity, or health justice. And it's really featuring amazing movement leaders who we'll introduce in a moment. I also want to give thanks to SAFSF for holding this plenary on this topic. I think it's the first for SAFSF. Yay. And particular thanks to the speakers who will be hearing. I'd also like to start by explaining really briefly why our foundation is partnering with worker organizations and hosting this session. And why do we hope that other funders will be inspired? And to us, the three reasons are really clear. First and foremost is that workers in food systems are absolutely critical to the functioning of agriculture and to enabling the food that we eat every day, to enable all of us to eat. There are at least 2.4 million farm workers and at least 1.7 million workers in processing plants in the US. And there are millions more that are also in restaurants and service organizations. So it's huge. The people are not only the backbones, we often hear about that, but also central hearts and minds of the food system with incredible skills and talent and contribution to our communities as well. The second point is that workers in the predominant extractive food systems suffer disproportionately from economic, environmental, and health injustices, and they lack legal protections. The large majority are immigrants, and which makes them highly vulnerable to inequities and to the attacks of the current administration. And third, and the final point, is that food chain workers and their organizations are often left out of policies and programs and given relatively little attention by funders in ag and food systems. Workers are typically invisibilized and marginalized. Yet, there are excellent organizations throughout the US working very hard to bring about transformations. So, at Cliff Family Foundation, worker justice, health, and safety is one of the priorities in our food systems work and our funding. And we feel that food systems must center people, meaning humanizing food systems. I think that's echoing the message that Charlotte was saying this morning in a very first presentation. We are really grateful and inspired to partner with the people and organizations such as those represented this afternoon who are advancing the rights and the health and safety and justice for workers. We hope to raise awareness about the opportunities for the empowerment of people on the front lines who are not merely victims, but can be champions of change. So in this session, you can learn about these issues, and now I'm happy to introduce Veronica Garibay, who's the Executive Director of Leadership Council for Justice and Accountability, and she's going to be kicking off the session and introducing our speakers.
Thank you, and thank you, everyone. Buenas tardes. Vamos a hacer este panel completamente en español. I'm just kidding, but I got your attention now, right? Okay. All right. We have the hard task of facilitating the last plenary with four amazing women that is between you and dinner today. But I promise that this is a great panel. I'd like to introduce you to Leticia Zavala, Rosalinda Guillen, Marta Ojeda, and Ayamil Martinez, whose bios are in the app, and you can learn more about them and their work and their advocacy and organizing efforts across the country. And I have the privilege of moderating a panel of four phenomenal women who have been leading the way and paving the way for people like me to engage and organize and lead advocacy. My name is Veronica Garibay. As Ann said, I'm with Leadership Council for Justice and Accountability, based in Fresno, California, in the San Joaquin Valley. I grew up in the San Joaquin Valley. Parlier is my home. It is a region of over 4 million people. It is a beautiful region, long extracted for its natural resources, its land, and its people. And yet, despite all of that, it is home to some of the most resilient people in the country. And despite the economic, environmental, health, climate, energy, social, democratic crises that we face today, people still show up. And I'm very, very proud to be part of that movement and part of that work and learn from everyone who is here today. So thank you for being here. We have 4 very strong, phenomenal speakers today, so we're going to try to cram as much information and share as much about their work as we can, but I do invite you and urge you to follow up with them after tomorrow. Catch them on the breaks, catch them at breakfast so you can learn more about their work. Just like every panel at this conference, they are all phenomenal. And I know we could all talk for hours about our work. So I'm just going to kick it off, and I'm going to kick it off with Leticia. Your first question is, we know that we are operating in a political and economic environment that is severely impacting our food system and impacting who has access to opportunity and who's treated with dignity. What do you think are the largest forces at play? Who's benefiting? And how are you partnering with workers?
Thank you. Thank you for having us. So I am Leticia Zavala. I work with It's Our Future. It's an organization that was founded by H-2A workers. H-2A workers are workers that come here on a visa every year to harvest crops. There's a misleading type of information that's going on in the administration currently, where they're saying we have to get rid of all the immigrants and send them back because they're bad and they're no good. At the same time, the current administration is expanding the guest worker program here in the United States. In October, the Trump administration lowered H-2A wages by 1/3. So almost $5 less workers will be making this year per hour while they're harvesting crops. They have included a housing deduction, so now workers are going to have to pay rent, but it's not rent, so they can't demand better housing conditions because it's just a housing deduction. At the same time, workers continue to be threatened. You know, these workers depend on their grower for their immigration status, because the moment they're fired, their visa cancels, their housing, because they provide the housing, transportation, and often even their food. They control kitchens, they sell workers the food, and workers don't have access to a refrigerator to keep cold bottles of water and drink after a long day at the fields. So we've been organizing. North Carolina, we launched a No More Deaths campaign, and farm workers are organizing so that no more workers die from heat. We're asking for clean, cold drinking water, the right to medical attention, breaks, and also a plan for high heat indexes.
Rosalinda?
I just want to say that the housing that Leticia's talking about, because we see it in Washington State also, they're basically like barrack-style prison camps, many with chain link fence around them and communal kitchens and bathrooms. So it's not really housing. It's really shameful. I think for what I wanted to mention today about this question is, our real issue right now is corporate ag taking so much control of policy making and rules making at the state level, but also down at the local level. And I want to talk about specifically the Farm Bureau, who is investing millions of dollars in oppositional campaigns to farm workers organizing across the country and attacking leaders on the ground. And I can say that because I'm one of those leaders. They have a specific website on me personally, and also Maria Fernandez, another leader in the other side of the state of Washington, in the Yakima area, who has been supporting farm workers and trying to save lives of H-2A workers in that area. In our county, an H-2A worker died. So when we're talking about H-2A and deaths, it's real. We had one H-2A worker die in our county, and it's like really energized us to oppose this program, but also to save the jobs of our farm worker families that have been working with farmers in Whatcom and Skagit counties for some of them 2 and 3 generations. So there is that push. And I think that the retaliation coming from the Farm Bureau on any kind of organizing in support of job security and wages for farm workers at the local level is getting really intense and growing really fast. And some of that retaliation is also against small family farmers. So these are corporate farmers that hire lobbyists at the local level and at the state level. And they focus on the leadership, including the farm worker union. So it's like, it's a double political attack on us, especially the leadership at the local level that links up with the deportations of farm workers and other folks at the local level.
Thank you. My name is Marta Ojeda, and I'm from the Worker Justice Alliance and the Just Purchasing Consortium, which is a national initiative of worker centers and universities who is trying to use the buying power of the universities to make some structural change in the poultry and meat packing industry. I'm going to talk about the processing plants of chicken and meat packing and the working conditions and what we're doing. But first I want to thank Anthrop for organizing this panel, because really the workers always are invisible, and it's time that they, because we all the food, no matter what kind of food, if it's milk, vegetables, meat, everything, we rely on the labor force of them. So therefore it's so important that we talk about them. I'm going to talk about the workers who are talking in the Smithfield plants and Tyson plants and Cargill, and also in Pilgrim. So we eat amazing chicken and turkey and meat, but we never think about the suffering of the workers. Right now, they have to, in some plants, the workers have to wear diapers because they are not able to have access to the bathroom. Yet, OSHA says that it should be at least one bathroom for every 20 workers, but nowhere say that they have access to go to the bathroom. The line speed is 100, it used to be 142 chickens a minute in the line, but now in Trump administration increased to 175. So now supervisors say, we don't have enough workers to replace you, you are not able to go to the restroom. In Missouri, workers have access to the restroom 2 times a week. In Texas, does not exist a law for breaks or to go to the bathroom. In addition to that, the workers has to do 45 cuts. Chicken, meat, no matter 45 cuts a minute, 25,000 cuts a day. By the quarter of the day, the knife, they are not enough sharp, so they have to do a lot of work in order to really make possible to do all those things. They work with chemicals. Those chemicals are splashing, are burning their skin and everything. So it's been really hard. Workers are dying. It's real. Are dying in that plants. Child labor, it's amazing. Wage theft, they just won one collective action for wage theft. So all those things are happening, and we are not aware the sacrifice that the workers take in order that we have that food on the table. Yes, they are organizing, they are developing coalitions on the local level, regional level, they are building alliance across the states, and they are trying to look for alternatives, because these systems is really destroying all the protections to the workers. And one of the things, the more important thing, is that they are building these alternatives. For example, the Just Purchasing Consortium, where it's bringing together workers and buyers on the same side, so they can learn from one another. And we are educating all these sustainability programs in order that they learn about the workers. They are very concerned about the environment, the recycling, the emission of carbono, and all those things. But the abuse of the workers are invisible. So it's time that they be also included, because they belong to the environment, not just to the air.
Buenas tardes. My name is Nayamin Martinez. I have the privilege of leading the Central California Environmental Justice Network, or CCJN. I live in Fresno County. And maybe those of you that have heard of the Central Valley of California known that we have this nickname, the basket of the world. And yes, we export, this industry is a billionaire industry that exports all kinds of crops to like all parts of the world and the country. But what is less known is what it takes to produce all that. And that means the workers. I agree with everything that my colleagues have said. I will just give you one little statistic and even show it to you in paper so you can see the reality. So in Fresno County alone, in 2023, the gross profits of the agricultural industry exceeded 8.5 billion, okay? Billion with a B. Yet, the medium wages for farm workers were 15,000. I want those two numbers to sink in our minds and sink in our hearts. Because when we go and grab a juicy orange, apple, grapes from our valley, think about all these workers. There are the invisible workers that make this billionaire industry possible. And yet, they are not, one part of the question was who is benefiting? Not them, for sure. So what are we doing about it? Well, we start by making sure that they know their rights. Because in California, they are always saying that we have the most stringent rules in the country. Well, if you have a lot of rules, but they're not enforced, guess what? They're not, they are meaning nothing. So what we do is we educate workers so that they could know what is their minimum wage, what are OSHA needs to be doing to protect them from extreme heat, from wildfires, from abuses and retaliation. And then we help them organize, because knowing your rights is not enough. Sometimes you're afraid of exercising those rights. So in the next few sessions or questions, I will elaborate more. How does that look like? What coalitions were we formed? What measures and initiatives we have put in place to make sure that, first of all, farm workers are not invisible, that they are valued, that they are paid right wages, and that they are recognized for their work.
Thank you, Nayamin, and thank you for getting us ready for the next question, which is all four of you talked about the cross-cutting themes that you see in the work: worker abuses, low wages that have not kept up with the cost of living, and the fact that elected officials know about that. They know what the issues are. They're not blind to it. People are aware of it. We know it. We see it. We can, in the region, in the San Joaquin Valley, we can smell it, literally smell the billions of dollars that are being made off our backs and extracted off our backs in agriculture and in factory farms. So knowing how you talked about, you each talked about how housing, access to hygiene, basic dignity, knowing your rights, confronting the extreme impacts of climate change like excessive heat, drought. How are you navigating and partnering with workers to confront what seems to be a crisis after crisis after crisis in your work? And I'll start with Nayamin. This time we'll go this way.
It's hard to keep it to 3 minutes, so I'll try to synthesize my question around the impacts of climate change in farm workers. And I will keep it at 3. Extreme heat. The Central Valley had always been hot. I've been living there for 26 years, and I'm not get used to that heat. But in the last decade, every summer we break record for how hot it is. And we have days of 110, 116 degrees. You know how much sweat a farm worker sweats when it's over 90 degrees? More than 3 gallons, okay? So we need to be making sure that they have some way to cool themselves. So we established a program that we distribute resiliency kits to farm workers so that they could have a way of cooling down properly. Recently, we got a grant from the state that is allowing us to do 1,600 of these resiliency kits. It's still a drop in a bucket because there are many more farm workers, but that's something. Wildfires. The year that we had the COVID, we have a massive wildfire in Sequoia, one of the closest national parks to our area. Farm workers were working with COVID, with extreme heat, and with the ashes coming down from this wildfire. We have a rule that protects them. Guess what? The employers were not giving them the N95 masks. They were not giving them breaks. They were not modifying their work schedules. So we partnered so that we could have we were trying to pass a bill so that they could be protected by doing text alerts so that they could be moved out of the camps when there was this type of emergencies. It didn't pass. So for now, we're distributing N95 masks, we're educating them about this, and we're also continuing to work with statewide stakeholders so that one day that text alert becomes a reality. And even more, that when we have these conditions, they should have the right to stay home and be healthy and be safe, but not without sacrificing their income, because that's what is happening now. And then the last one I would say is drought. The drought has been, what it has impacted the workers is less jobs. A lot of the jobs in the Central Valley are going out because they don't have water, they're following the land. On top of that, now we have massive solar farms that are leaving these farm workers without jobs. So what we're working is trying to push for a just transition that allows them to continue to have a livelihood in jobs that are compare or that are according to the skill sets that they have. So small regenerative farms or other type of work that are well paid and that care for the well-being. Thank you.
Thank you, Nayamin. Before going to Marta, I'd like to point out that basic notification alerts to protect farm workers in California did not pass in California, where there is a Democratic majority leadership. Thank you. Go ahead, Marta.
Okay, thank you. I think that the most important thing that we are all aware is that a government of corruption and impunity is running our country. And it's a side of the huge corporation, it's supporting these corporations. And because of that, we have a collapse of the labor enforcement and the dismantling of all the health and safety agencies that suppose have to provide protection for the workers. OSHA was created to ensure a safe workplace. And however, what see in this administration is that is the lowest budget in the history. They have 176 inspectors to oversee 8 million work sites. There is one inspector for 84,000 workers. So they are not really doing anything. They don't have the capacity to do absolutely anything. So therefore, we need to create some mechanisms of enforcement. We need to create the standards where it does not exist. As I was saying, the workers, they do 25,000 cuts daily. They have musculoskeletal problems and ergonomic problems, and they are not able to use their arms anymore. And there is not exist any standard about it. So we have to create those standards, but also symbolic standards are just window dressing. We need mechanism of enforcement where really the workers will be protected. And because of that, we are working, for example, we were working with Senator Bobby Copper and one bill that was to protecting the meat and packing workers. We have been working with George Washington Consortium, trying to bring these universities on board and try to create this opening. This, the environment, the health and safety, the protection, those are the pillars of sustainability. But that pillars have been undermined. And we need to create a foundation for those pillars that really not just only create this protection for workers, standards and mechanism of enforcement. Also, we need that those pillars, we find the way that be united, not separating those workers. We need to see how we can create a stronger foundation for those pillars for sustainability that include workers and mechanisms of enforcement.
Thank you. I'll let in our organization, having grown up a farm worker and lived in the farm worker community pretty much all my younger life, we know that the farm worker leadership is in the fields, they are in our community, and they are trying to lead. They have attempted to lead to improve their conditions. We've been organizing for over 22 years, and in that process, identifying farm worker leadership and then supporting them to lead has allowed them to create their own independent farm worker union, Familias Unidas por la Justicia in Washington State. And this is a powerful, visionary farm worker leadership that is 100% indigenous Mixteco Triqui. And with the partnership with them, with this leadership and their union, Community to Community has managed to host an annual farm worker tribunal in our state capital. Next year will be our 13th. And so these leaders, farm worker leaderships in the union, with our support, go to Olympia and confront all of our political leaders there. And now it's become an annual event that all of the legislators in Olympia look forward to, so that they can listen to the testimonies of farm workers from across the state about what is happening in Washington state in agriculture and what are the solutions. Through this process, our farm worker leadership has managed to implement paid overtime. They have managed to participate as much as they can in implementation of heat rules, and are managing to continually improve the heat rules in Washington state, to get the state to hire more inspectors in the Department of Labor and Industries, to oversee the H-2A program in Washington state by legislating an oversight committee called the H-2A Oversight Committee, in which they sit in that committee with the growers in trying to improve health and safety for the H-2A workers, but also open up opportunities for local farm workers to be hired to prove that there is no labor shortage in Washington state. Our union and our leadership meets with local politicians at the state level and at the local level in our spaces now. They come to us and ask for ideas and solutions that need to be implemented in Washington state. We are now currently fighting for paid hazard leave during climate crisis incidents in our state. Additionally, we are waging a really strong H-2A campaign to oppose local farmers, displacing local farm workers with H-2A workers, and to protect local H-2A workers. We are partnering, the union and other farm workers are partnership, including our organization, with our local Skagit Indivisible group, which takes up brings us a lot of additional support. And right now, the H-2A campaign which I'll speak to later, is becoming very important for job opportunities for local workers, and we're managing to keep them at bay in our counties, and we think we can do this statewide.
In North Carolina, we have seen since 2021, 27 H-2A workers that have come to the state to provide meals for their family go back in coffins. 27. We see suicide, we see heat, workers being crushed to death by tractors. And we have a state commissioner of labor who has taken the stance and says that education is better than enforcement. 2 workers that have died in 2 years consecutively work for a state legislator, right? She's making laws. And she was fined $3,000 for those deaths only. 1 due to heat, and 1 the worker was crushed to death by a sweet potato truck. The Commissioner of Labor also has implemented a backdoor bargaining opportunity. So if you have fines, you can request a backdoor meeting with the Department of Labor, and they will talk to you and work it out. That's what they say. And they have a fine forgiveness policy. And when we have workers dying from heat, like since 2023, we have not had a harvest where a worker doesn't either die or have permanent brain damage due to heat, right? There are no enforcement for water being in the fields. Growers are walking behind workers, literally clapping at them so that they can pick up the pace. And they're not being allowed to drink water either until they finish a row or until they finish part of the the load that needs to be done. We've been educating workers. We've been getting workers to make collective decisions of walking out so that the burden of losing the job doesn't fall on just one worker. We've been teaching workers about 911. A lot of workers who come here from foreign countries do not know what 911 is. A lot of labor camps do not have addresses, so there's no address where the paramedics come to pick you up if you have an emergency, a medical emergency. There's no air conditioning in farms. And so heat continues to be a grave, grave danger for our workers. And it doesn't just affect the workers. The tobacco harvest is maturing a lot faster because of the heat. And so that puts an extra burden of a faster pace and an extra tension of workers to get the crop out of the field and work longer days because the crop needs to get out of the field. So we need enforcement, and we need it now.
Thank you, Leticia. Each of you has also talked about some of the work that you're doing. You're working with workers to organize and share education about their rights and information. You're working towards either local or statewide legislative and policy action around hazard pay, increased protection in housing, access to safe drinking water in the field and at home. Can you tell us a little bit about what are you doing that is working and what do you need to scale it? And I'm going to start with Martha.
Why me? Okay. Anyway, so, I was thinking that the damage that this administration has been doing is so extensive that it will take us so long to recover what we lost. However, the most important thing that we need to really take into account in these things is no matter what the government does, no matter how bad it is, it's an opening. It's an opening for us to think out of the box, to create alternatives, and to grow. For example, the network of the worker centers that we are working on now, all of them are refugees and immigrants. They are from all over the world. They are from Asia, from Africa, from the Caribbean, from Mexico, Central America, South America, from all over the world. And they speak different language, Creole, Somali, Arabic, French. And we have to come over and to see how they really overcome those barriers of language or persecution. They are target. Refugees and immigrants, they are target right now. They are arrested. We don't find them. They are being sent to third countries, to all over the world. However, so we are trying to find ways to how we can create new models and how we can escalate these models. For example, right now with the partnership with the universities, with these sustainability programs, we are trying to do through the contracts that they really make changes because we don't have enforcement. We don't have standards, we don't have government, we don't have anything with this administration. So then we need to create it. And that way with these contracts and the universities, right now we have 3 universities, that is California, Michigan, and Georgetown. California is on 10 campuses. Suppose they consume 50 million in chicken and meat. And we are trying to escalate, to bring more universities in order to see 100 million. The most power we have and the buying power, the better we can improve the conditions for the workers and the plants. But the other thing is that in addition to that, we can not just escalate with the university, we can bring all the workers for all other industries to the program, not just to create a better condition for workers, also for the meal, for any other product, for groceries, for transportation, for anything that all the food chains workers will be included in the program. So that's the way that we can escalate things. The only thing that I can ask you is when you have on the table your milk, your fruit, your chicken, your meat, your vegetable, think on the workers. But also think how can we interconnect the pillars of sustainability.
Thank you. Rosalinda? You want to go next?
I have to, what can you do? What are we doing that's working? And how do we scale it?
And what do you need to scale it?
And what do we need to scale it? I mean, we have, for me, I guess for community to community, the right and the ability for farm workers to organize themselves into labor unions has been the most successful efforts that we can take. Because of Familias Unidas por la Justicia, we have managed to make structural policy changes and social changes at the local level, with this leadership being front and centered, this indigenous leadership, Mixteco Triqui, being respected by farm workers. To scale it out is just, I can't even think about it, because the opposition from the corporate agricultural industry is so strong. There is structural racism built into the agricultural culture and society and industry that started with slavery in this country. How do you undo from corporate agricultural powerhouses in Washington, D.C.? How do you undo that kind of racism that sinks all the way back into everything that they do? This industry wants slaves back in the fields. The H-2A program, is what it is a neoliberal labor solution to the removal of an unwanted population in this country of the Mexican immigrant or any other immigrant. And the H-2A program is growing. That is the slave labor force. It's a legalized slave labor force that is being brought in. What do we need for that? We need millions of people opposing on a cultural level and a society level the use of this type of workforce in agricultural production, period. You cannot quantify that into dollars. Yes, you can support us to build more unions in Washington State. We believe we need at least 4 additional localized farm worker unions in the state, but we need to pay the farm worker organizers that come from the farm worker community to do that organizing. So we need millions of dollars to operationalize it just in Washington State. More than that, we need to get the message to eaters to just stop eating the product that is being produced by oppression and slavery. If it's an H-2A grown product, that is what it is. My people are dying in this process that this administration and this industry has been slowly moving forward, and they're succeeding. So there's so much. Yes, we need money, but that is not enough. It goes deeper than that.
Thank you, Rosalinda. Nayamin?
What we have done is to, like my colleagues here, promote the leadership, they already are leaders. We just need to give them a little hand. So our farm worker leaders in the Central Valley are working on campaigns that are addressing the issues that are more important to them. So for example, one of their campaigns right now is agua limpia, fresca y cerca, nearby, because believe it or not, they are not a specific distance. So the growers, the inspectors of Kalosha can come and they say, oh, well, it seems cerca, when they have to walk more than 5 minutes to get to where the water is and where the bathroom is. We're also forming coalitions. We decided that we needed a coalition that really put forth the interests of the farm workers. We formed the California Farm Worker, we co-created the California Farm Worker Coalition. We are running our first co-sponsor bill. Actually, it's being heard tomorrow in the Senate committee of the Ag. It passed the Assembly, so we were thrilled. We also are forming spaces where the decision makers hear directly from farm workers. We formed a Campo task force, a quarterly task force where we have people from OSHA, from the Labor Committee, from the Department of Pesticide Regulation, all of them talking to these farm worker leaders and being responsible, held accountable to the things that they're doing. And I'm happy to say that after a lot of pushing, the OSHA established an ag unit. So they are going and doing unannounced inspections in fields, and I think that's very important because a lot of our farm workers were afraid of making a report because of retaliation. And then finally, we work on a public education campaign. Why? Because we believe that decision makers, and oftentimes all of us, that we are not aware of what's going on with farm workers need to know, and need to know in a very, very fun way. So this past January, we had a farm stand outside of the Capitol in Sacramento, and this is all the junk that I have here. So we capture stories of farm workers in different products, and those were the products that were in the farm stand. We have the little brochure that has the description of that, so I'm going to have some available if you want to see them. But some of the things that they have, for example, in these boxes, there are stories of the farm workers. What does it mean to work in the fields picking grapes? All the injustices that they go through. We have an inaction figure, which are the inspectors, the enforcement inspectors. I'm happy to say that the chair of the Assembly, the Labor Committee in the California Assembly, came to our farm stand and said, can I grab one of these because I want to have this in my office every time that I have to deal with Cal OSHA. And she was the one who ordered an audit of Cal OSHA after us taking the farm workers to the Capitol. We also have the bottled waters with all the contaminated pesticides that the big farm are leaving in our community. And then, of course, the sanitizing wipe. So this is high-power wipes that should scrub down the modern supply chain, sanitizing your conscience and your role in a system built on invisible labor.
Thank you, Naomi. Perhaps conference organizers will allow us to showcase the farm stand somewhere near so everyone can have a chance to see it before they go home. I'll pass it to Leticia.
Yes, so we are just going back to basics, collective actions. We've been organizing workers to take actions collectively on the farms. Last year we were able to regain $100,000 worth of, more than $100,000 worth of stolen wages. We were able to get, workers to negotiate with their grower different times of being out in the fields and separating the crews so that some crews are out in the fields one day and in the shop next day. We've been able to negotiate different times for harvesting, like going in earlier in the morning and going back in the afternoon. That has been really good and successful. And I think everybody has said consumer participation. We cannot do anything in the food system if we don't have consumer participation. Everyone who eats is either responsible for the exploitation or is fighting to get rid of the exploitation. There's no in between. There's no in between. So we've been organizing churches. We've been asking churches to be sacred shades. And so when workers decide, today we're walking out and we're having a forced break, they walk out and they have a forced break, and we ask a church to be their sacred shade and to go out in the field, put up a tent, bring cold water so that those workers can have a drink and also witness the retaliation that could potentially come from the grower. And we've been able to be successful. We've established a heat stress coalition. So farm workers are not just fighting for heat protections for themselves. They're fighting for heat protections for postal workers, for construction workers. We're fighting in the state to make sure that all workers are protected from the heat, and we're doing it together.
Thank you. This sort of last question really focuses on the work that we all do and everyone in this room, but particularly the work of organizers who are in it for the long haul. I always say organizers are in it for the long haul because unlike elected officials or politicians, they're not birds of passage that come and go. They stay rooted in community and work with community and stand with community regardless of what the issues one may be facing. And that's really hard work. And we've heard from Rosalina that there's a whole webpage dedicated to attacking her and her work and leadership. And that isn't just Rosalina's story. Raise your hand if you've ever been personally attacked for the work that you do and for your leadership and for standing strong for your values and having a backbone when nobody else would. Thank you for doing that. So the last question, and I'm going to start with Rosalina this time, is how do you keep going?
I didn't write a note on that. You know, the work that we do, and the work that I'm doing is building. It's not destroying. And so the building part, when you pass a bill, and when you have farm workers testifying in Mixteco at a legislative hearing, when the farm workers come in and tell us, you know, the victories in the fields, administering their collective bargaining agreement in the berry fields and earning an average now of $45 an hour with their union contract in Washington State at Sakuma Farms. I mean, that really, that's how I sustain myself. Also, eating with them, hanging out with with my community, with farm workers, watching the youth that I've known since they were 10, 12 years old, now 18, 19, and 20, working for our organization, joining us in the marches. That kind of building in our community just really, it really fills me and energizes me. And I think that, I don't know what it is, but it's just something that you just keep going. Every little thing in our struggle is a victory, because every little benefit that we fight for is a war with the industry, and every winning of those wars, just those battles, I guess you could say, build up. So for me, watching or having a farm worker-owned cooperative, farming on our land trust land, and being able to pay them $35 an hour to do the work, because that's what I believe the minimum wage for a farm worker in this country should be, is entering wages $35 an hour. And for them to be able to choose for themselves when it's too hot and to stop working and go home, and to be able to pay them the time that they're gone because it was too hot, and still pay them their wages, living and being able to implement what we say needs to happen fills me. And having them come to me, the farm workers, with their vision of what their next steps should be to continue to improve their lives in our community, there's just nothing like it. Honestly, nothing like it.
Leticia?
Little victories. I wanna tell a story. So when the grower controls the kitchen, we call them forced meal plans, right? And we had a group of workers that they were in a forced meal plan, and they were fed Monday, they were fed Tuesday, they were fed Wednesday, and the meal that they got on Thursday was all the leftovers from Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. And they were fed up, so they signed a petition. And out of 40 workers, like 37 of them signed a petition saying, we want access to a kitchen. And the grower came and she said, okay, I don't believe I understood correctly, and I'm not sure if you guys did either. I need the petition to be redone. And so those of you who don't want the kitchen access, who want kitchen access, need to sign the petition again. But understand that I have no kitchen here. So if you're signing, you're basically signing your resignation. And 9 workers stepped up and they signed the petition. and 9 workers were fired. And we took them to my house. And they lived with my family for 11 days until they got their job back. And we were debriefing with the workers, and we asked one of the workers and said, so how do you feel? You know, like you got your job back, you were fired, like we went through this whole process. And he said, you know, I was fighting for the kitchen, but I didn't realize that I got something more important. The grower knows my name. And she calls me by my name now. And so I am her equal now, right? And that's the kind of power that you bring when you can organize and take some of that power for yourself. You take that power, and those are the things that move us. I want to go back because I didn't mention what we needed. And but security is a big thing. We're in rural North Carolina, and I'm thinking about you and the web page and that you have, but we've been subpoenaed for our information from growers. We've been harassed. We've had guns pulled on us recently. There's more police activity on the farm since last year, threatening workers with deportation, even though they're here on visas. And we've been arrested for trespassing. We need support for our safety and security so we can continue to do the work that we do.
Marta?
Well, what I can tell you, one of the things is that to see the pain, the sacrifice, to see 14 years old without protections in the company, to see how no matter how bad is the situation, they never give up. They hope. They find ways to keep organizing. That really inspired me, the resilience. To see that if they are arrested, how they come together to support each other, to support the family that is left behind and all those things. So if they are in a situation that they don't have any health coverage, how they find a way to support each other. I think that we are not fighting for $1 more. We are not fighting for health and safety, like as somebody told me a while ago. We're building community. We're a family. And we support each other. And that's what really inspired me. Yes, we need money to continue building the capacity and the work in the field with the worker centers so that they continue doing all this work in order that we really develop some alternatives to change the situation. Because for me is that no matter the challenge that they face, we believe what we are doing. And just in our hands is to make change.
What gets me going is negative and positive reinforcement. So negative, I still have saved in my phone a recorded voice message from an angry, I guess, white farmer. After a pesticide interview that I did against, pesticide use, he left me a voice message that says, "You communist bitch," excuse my French, you should get all the rotten corn, all the rotten apples, all the rotten vegetables, and you feed that to your family because we cannot go without pesticides. I'm like, so when I need a reminder of why I'm doing this, I sometimes play that message back. So I'm terca, I'm like, I'm gonna show him better. But then the positive reinforcement comes from stories like they shared. The person that will be testifying tomorrow in the hearing was the shyest farm worker that I ever met from El Salvador. Wilfredo will be always quiet at the back of the room, and now he find that courage of like, was a victim of wage theft, and I'm gonna go and tell them because we need to be respected. So seeing Don Primitivo, who was able to get his foreman or labor contractor to wash the bathrooms and bring them clean water after he showed him the picture and said, "Hey, I'm going to call Kalosha. And the foreman was like, you're estás loco. And then he showed them the picture that we took when we were to Sacramento with Kalosha. And guess what? They washed the bathrooms and they brought them water. So when they share these stories with me, that is what motivates me. So I guess it's the good and the bad, but just seeing that even when the odds and the systems are big and complex, but these wins, these small wins or big wins for me are what kept me going.
Some of the work that everyone's talked about and a little bit about sort of the work that, I do a lot of work. I don't have the privilege of working with 3 of the panelists, but I do the privilege of working with Nayamin for many years in the San Joaquin Valley and in California. And a couple of things, I want to bring in a few people in the room. One is Conchita Posar, who is a community leader in North Shore in the Eastern Coachella Valley in California, who says we are planting seeds that we're going to water slowly but surely and are going to grow, and we're going to grow a movement in our community. I think of someone like Pedro Zacarias, who worked to organize his entire mobile home park, also in the Coachella Valley, that was facing dilapidated housing conditions, no water, no raw sewage in the front yard, and fought for a $30 million allocation in the state budget to relocate the entire mobile home park. And a year later was subsequently deported through facial recognition software by immigration officials doing rounds in the Eastern Coachella Valley. And still, he calls in and joins every community meeting virtually from his hometown in Mexico. I think of someone like Pedro from Madera County, who went and testified in Sacramento, who also unfortunately lost his life. But before he did, he went and testified to make sure that California would establish safe, healthy indoor air temperatures, because in California, if you are a tenant, you have a right to a cool, the landlord has to be able to heat your home to a safe standard, but there's no equal requirement for cooling your home or making sure that you have safe indoor temperatures, especially in a state and in regions like the San Joaquin Valley and the Coachella Valley, where Nayamin mentioned we break record heat every year, and this year is anticipated to be one of the worst. And I think about people like Julia in Cantua Creek, who show up at Westlands Water District public board meetings. Westlands Water District, I think some of you may be familiar with the most powerful agricultural and water district in the West, who show up and say, how dare you think about retiring 136,000 acres of land without talking about worker and farm worker displacement and protections, and what that means for our economic livelihoods, what that means for rural communities, and what that means for us. And you're totally focused on making money off the water transfer, making money off the electricity that will be produced, and by the way, will be sent to Marin County, the wealthiest county in California, but cannot be sold or shared or provided to local communities in Fresno County. And you're making money off the electricity that the utilities are going to pay for. So those are the voices, and I'm sure that we all talk about, that sustain the work and allow us to keep going. And we've Nayamin can add economic terrorist, environmental terrorist to her list of names that we've all been called. But we do have about 3 minutes left. So if there is a burning question, I'd love to take it before we move on. 3 minutes.
I have a question. I just have a comment. I've been so enlightened with your panel. Just sitting here listening to all of this all week, yesterday and today, about the sins of this country. And we are sitting here in 2026, listening to this, legalized slavery in our country. That's all it is. And abuse, human rights abuse in unimaginable ways. And does the whole country know about this? I didn't know about it. I'm East Coast Virginia. I'm an hour and a half from DC. What you need is some outside advocates that can reach government offices. And I know we have a nut running the country right now, but there are some people with some sense up there, not just him, that can kind of do some things about this stuff. I just see we are just spiraling as a country, and this is no different than Germany in 1942, cages and concentration camps. And I had an interview with BBC about a week ago. It's going to air on the 4th of July about the 250th anniversary. And I talk about this, not this, but I talk about how the immigrants are being treated in this country. There is no democracy in the United States. Please do not be deceived. These billionaires and these corrupt companies have taken our country over. I just wanted to say that to you guys. Thank you. And thank you for
Now,
hanging in there.
Veronica, can I just put out a
Yes.
quick act? Yep.
Oh, they want. Okay, let's just make it real quick. Gracias, señoritas. I wanted to find out, are there any bilingual documentaries about all of what you described to us, and how would we access those so that we can share them also in our communities? Because here in the Gullah Geechee Nation, we have a lot of these workers, and we've supported them getting somewhat better conditions where we are not the greatest, but I think that these movements could be combined, but a lot of people are very unaware of a lot more that you have told us. Keep up the good fight. Keep up the good fight. We're praying with you.
There is a lot of information out there. And I just have to, before I go, I can't get off this chair until I say this. There are now 12 bills in the Congress, 12 bills. Some of them are sitting in 7 committees that are working to strengthen the H-2A program. So these bills, some of these bills even provide subsidies to the agricultural industry to bring in more guest worker programs, more guest workers. They provide subsidies to build housing for them, which are basically prison barracks. Every one of these bills has a component in it to strengthen the H-2A program and bring in more H-2A workers from, not just from Mexico and South America, from other countries all over the world. Some of them are expanding the H-2A program to other industries. This is literally part of Project 2025 in having a controlled workforce, not just in agriculture, but this opens it all up. These bills, all of them, there's 12. You need to look them up. I have the numbers on me, but if you are interested in really calling your representatives or putting pressure, whatever pressure we can put to stop it now, because it's 4 years from now, if these bills pass, almost the entire labor force in agriculture is going to be contracted labor force and imported workers from all over the world. It changes the nature of food production in the United States, just a radical shift in labor.
Thank you. Maybe we could put the names of the bill numbers in the application so everyone who's registered through the app can see them and call in. And
Yep.
I want to hand the mic to Ann real quick for a second.
Well, actually, first, does anybody have suggestions of documentaries? Yeah.
There was a slide with our contact information and
Right.
emails. So if you shoot us an email, we can get some out to you.
If you go to our website, foodjustice.org, we have a whole page on the H-2A program with links to documentaries, including some farmers that are opposing it in the Northeast in New York City especially. There's a really strong activist, a farmer, who is very direct about the H-2A program. So there's a lot of links if you go to www.foodjustice.org and look for the page on the H-2A program.
And there are, on most of their websites, if you do have their information there, also have some videos of their own organizations and the work that they do. So the Cliff Family Foundation is really very privileged to also be supporting some other organizations that do collaborations, like the Food Chain Workers Alliance, who's represented here, and HEAL Food Alliance, another one that also is working at the national level to try to push for change. So it's really great. There's organizations, we need more support and more efforts of those. But
We're very grateful. I know in our organization, the funding that we've received from these funders have allowed us to be able to pay stipends to farm workers to attend the farm worker tribunal, to be able to travel, to be able to do the work that they have to do, and they are doing it. We can't do it for free as much as everybody would like it to be. Farm workers need to be able to pay, because if they can't pay their rent, they can't feed their children, it's difficult for them to do the organizing that needs to get done to organize unions, which is what we're focusing on in Washington State.
Thank you, everyone. Can everyone join me in a round of applause for our excellent, fabulous panel this afternoon? Thank you.
If you want to continue the conversation, you can meet us at breakfast.
Yes,
Thank you,
please
everyone.
catch them.
thank you all. And I just want to say, okay, should we, si se puede, 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 si se puede. Thank you all.